All right, guys, Cole Gordon here, and welcome back to the training. This training's on sales first principles, which is understanding and influence the prospect's decision making process. So, in this training, we're going to talk a lot about philosophy and why having a strong sales philosophy is the most important thing that you can have. And this training is going to cover, I'll just disclaim right now, we're not going to get into specific strategies and tactics, but what we are going to talk about is the philosophy that you need that's going to lay the foundation for everything that we're going to teach and talk about later into the program. So this should be a pretty quick training, but it's going to cover everything with the philosophy, and let's get into it right now. So first, what we're going to cover is one, the power behind using philosophy over tactics, okay? The old school style of selling and what's taught out there a lot today is very tactical. It's very what to say when somebody says X. And that's what a lot of people are ascribing to right now, and that's why a lot of people are struggling, okay? So we want to understand philosophy. Now, what I'll assure you is that you will get tactics and strategies in that program, okay? I really think that you need both, but if you have a strong philosophy, there's a lot of benefits to that, and it lays a great foundation for you to build your own natural sales style on top of. So we're going to talk about the power behind using philosophy over tactics. We're also going to talk about what people are really buying, okay? And it's not you or your offer, right? But we want to know what people are buying. We also want to know why people are buying it. And how I explain this is through what I call the buying pocket and how we create this. Okay, so we'll get into this. It'll make sense in just a second. I briefly want to touch on what drives all human behavior and some frameworks you can use to understand that, as well as the 7 beliefs your prospect must have to make a decision to work with you. Okay, and this is, if you read any of my marketing, this is actually the belief ladder that I talked about that you guys may or may not know that are signed up for this. So we're going to talk about the 7 beliefs, the belief ladder, what those are, and how to create those on your calls. And knowing all of this all together is really going to set the stage for everything else that we're going to teach within the program. So let's get into it. Oh, and we're also going to cover internal and external pressure, okay, and why each one of those is important and which one's better. So first, let's talk about the power of using philosophy over tactics, okay? So just to define a tactic real quick, a tactic's like a specific technique you might use on your calls. So there's like canned rebuttals, there's lines, there's scripts. When somebody tells you, I want to think about it, and you respond, well, what exactly do you want to think about? Okay, that's a common tactic being taught. Okay, and the benefit of tactics is that they're really easy to understand, and they're very like they lure you in for the quick fix, right? They're the shiny objects out there. Tactics are. And I'm not saying tactics aren't important, they're important, but the drawback of them is that they offer no behavioral flexibility, okay? And what I mean by that is that tactics only work when used within the proper context, okay? But if you don't have the right understanding and right sales philosophy, you can't really understand the context of any sales situation, and therefore you don't know which tactic to use. So when you understand and have a proper philosophy, it gives you behavioral flexibility because you're able to identify what context you're in, and then therefore the tactics what you need to use sort of naturally become obvious to you because you have the right philosophy and understanding of how people make decisions and what's going on in the context in the first place. Okay, so stay with me. This will make sense in more in a second. But again, 95% of sales training currently is all about tactics. Okay, very very prevalent in the old school stuff. It's like what to say to close the sale, all this stuff. I'm not saying some of this stuff's not important and valid, but you really got to focus on the philosophy as well. So, what's philosophy? Your philosophy is going to be your identity, beliefs, and values when it comes to the world of sales. It's like your sales paradigm. All right. And the thing about philosophy is there's nothing to memorize, but it's just concepts and applications that you need to understand that will ultimately allow you to develop your own natural style and give you complete behavioral flexibility so that no matter what the prospect does on the call, you're able to understand that context and have the proper philosophy to know what to do and what to say without memorizing a bunch of canned rebuttals and lines. Okay? And the real benefit of having your own natural style is basically there's three things I teach that could create influence. There's alignment with your prospect, alignment with your product, and alignment with your process. And the problem right now is that a lot of people have been through like a coaching program or two, and that coaching program gave them a script, and then that script doesn't feel natural and doesn't feel within alignment of them. So in that alignment triad, prospect, product, process, they're out of alignment with their process. And when you have proper philosophy, it allows you to start to use these concepts to develop your own natural style, which will put you in total alignment. And then you'll be able to kind of just, you won't have to use like rebuttals or scripts or any of this stuff. You just know the 7 beliefs that you're going towards. You know, you understand the belief ladder, the buying pocket, and all these things. And you can kind of just lead the conversation to where it needs to be so the prospect's in a position before you pitch them to where once you pitch them, if it makes sense, they're going to buy it. Okay? So the drawback of philosophy is that it lacks practical application. Okay? I've been through a lot of programs that frustrated me early on because it taught me really good philosophy, but like it just didn't teach me how to apply it, right? So it's not about just understanding the concepts. You got to understand the applications, the strategies, tactics as well. So this program is going to give you both, okay? So let's start to get into like what is my sales philosophy and how you could really create a philosophy of your own that's empowering. And the first thing you should understand is what people are ultimately buying, okay? That's the first step in understanding and developing a strong sales philosophy. So I want you to know that people don't buy because you offer your company, your brand, testimonials, or any of that stuff, right? I'm not saying that stuff's not important, but that's not what people are buying, okay? People are buying states, all right? Both on a surface level and an emotional level, okay? So you might have heard before that everybody has a current situation and a desired situation, okay? And what your job is to position your offer between somebody's current situation and desired situation. Well, within those situations, there's the surface level situation and the surface level destination. There's also the emotional level situation and the emotional level destination. Now, we're going to get into a good example in just a second. You probably heard before, people buy emotionally and justify logically. So both of these are important. This is the one that's going to take a lot of focus, the emotional, because it's where a lot of people miss out, and it's like where a lot of people don't want to go on the calls. It's also really important to understand what the 6 human needs are, because this will help you identify the emotional level situation and their destination, okay? And those 6 human needs, I got this from Tony Robbins, but the 6 human needs are certainty, variety, growth, contribution, love and connection, and significance, right? So your offer needs to be positioned in such a way to where it's logically, okay, logically this is going to get me from where I am now and where I want to be, and emotionally it takes them from a place of uncertainty to certainty, from a place, for instance, of stagnant, no growth to growth, from a place of no impact, not helping the people that they really want to serve, to a place of total contribution, from a place of no significance to total significance, all right? Your offer really needs to meet 2 or 3 of these needs. If you can do 3 or more, it's going to be really, really powerful. We'll get into an example in just a second, but the best salespeople in the world sell to both. And this is not the big example, but like a good way to understand that people buy emotional states is like ask yourself, when you go to the gas station to get an aspirin when you have a headache, do you buy because it's on sale? Do you buy because it's the company's Advil and not Motrin? Do you buy because of the testimonials? Or do you buy the fact that it provides an emotional state of not having a headache, right? That's what you really buy, all right? And that's what we're really selling as well, okay? So let's look at a business example of the situation versus the destination. And what we're going to do is talk about the entrepreneur who's on a business roller coaster, okay? And just to define like what the business roller coaster is, it's the entrepreneur who like he's really great at what he does, but he doesn't have a consistent lead generation system in place. So therefore, He has no idea where his next client or lead is going to come from week after week, month after month. And because lead generation's off, sales is off. Because sales is off, revenue's off, income is off, and life is off, right? And so it's like the typical feast or famine. And if you're on this training, you might have even been through this. I know I have been through this, so I've been there. Now, the surface level situation for this individual is inconsistent lead flow, right? It's maybe one lead a week, right? We really want to define that and put a number on it. The surface level destination is the ability to go out and get new leads and get new business whenever he wants, right? 5 leads a day and more leads than he knows what to do with. Consistent increased revenue and lead flow, income, and life, right? So we want to make sure we position our offer so it's obvious and we can make a logical bridge between where he is now and where he is want to be. We also want to understand the emotional situation and the emotional destination. So this is like an example across the 6 human needs, but his situation, because of the inconsistent lead flow, he might be experiencing the emotional state of uncertainty, right? The anxiety that comes from not knowing where his next lead / client / dollar is going to come from. A lot of uncertainty. People don't want to deal with that. What does he want? He wants certainty, which is one of the 6 emotional needs. And it's knowing where his client's going to come from predictably, and therefore having control over his income and his life, right? Control. People want control. Another situation, he might have a lack of significance. He doesn't feel like he's the provider, this is not spelled right, but provider at home. And he's also in a mastermind group, and he's making significantly less than his friends and his peers. So he doesn't feel significant. What is the emotional destination that he wants? He wants his peers to look up to him for his business success and to be recognized as the provider at home. Same thing with love and connection. I've talked to a ton of people. I used to sell to real estate agents, and I'm telling you, this was a huge one. It's a lack of love and connection, right? Because they don't have the right lead generation systems in place, their wife and their family are like, dude, you got to figure this out, or you got to go get a job. Like you're not bringing home enough money for us to be able to pay off the mortgage, pay off the bills, and the credit's piling up, and that's therefore affecting their relationship and the love and connection. Okay, so what does he want? He wants love from his family, love from his wife. He wants his wife to be able to relax in her feminine and appreciate him as the provider. So understanding this stuff, we'll talk about in week 2 how you can lace in your offer to where you can start to kind of hint at them getting these things through what you're providing logically. But right now, I just want you to understand it, okay? He also might have a lack of growth. You know, he's been stuck where he's at for a year, right? He's exactly where he was a year ago. What does he want? He wants to break new records in his business that he's never hit before, okay? So he has a lack of growth. What does he want? Growth. He also has a lack of contribution. Like he's really passionate about his clients, but he doesn't know how to get the clients who he can help, right? So what does he really want? He wants more impact, case studies. He wants speak on stage, all of these things, right? He wants to be known for the impact that he's making in the market, and that's also kind of significance as well. Like for instance, I just reviewed a call to where the salesperson was digging in to this prospect, and the prospect was saying, but what I really want is this, and he literally said, this sense of significance that comes from speaking on stage and knowing I'm really helping people and making an impact in my market, right? So a blend of contribution and significance. So just understand this stuff right now and start thinking about it, but just know this is there. And when you can sell not just the logical destination, but you can sell like 2 or 3 of these human needs as well emotionally, is super, super powerful. So that explains like what people are after, right? That's what people want. But why do they even bother purchasing from you? Like, we know that's what they want, but why even go through you in the first place, okay? And it's the way we make them go through us, and the reason they go through us is understanding the buying pocket and how to create that, okay? And you'll see what I mean in a second. So the buying pocket is basically a place where the prospect believes their transformation is possible, but only with your help, okay? So that's what I meant. Like, we know what they want, but why don't they just go do it themselves? Okay, well, they have to be in a place where they have the belief that the transformation is possible, but only with your help. Otherwise, they wouldn't buy from you. Okay? So think of like the emotional and service level situation versus destination as like what people buy. This is why they buy it from you specifically. All right? This also helps us understand where we need to nudge the prospect. Okay, and here's what I mean. Basically, the buying pocket, again, I'm going to say this for like a fourth time, is a place where they believe that the transformation they want is possible, but only with your help. If they're on the right side, they believe they can do it themselves and they don't need your help. If they're on the left side, they believe that it's not even possible. Okay? So, we got to understand where somebody is along this so we can use skilled questions and reframes and language to nudge them back where they need to be. All right? And we'll cover this specifically in a few weeks. But like if they're in a place where they don't even believe it's possible, well, what do we need to do? We need to give them proof to break down the belief and help them see that there's been people like them that have achieved the said results that they want. We do that through stories, case studies, personal experience, so on and so forth. There's other ways, but that's the best way. What if they're on the right side? What if they believe they can do it by themselves and they don't need your help? Well, what we need to do is we need to create doubt. All right, and we do that through skilled questions. Just as an example, and I'm going to use this one because probably a lot of you guys have heard of it, but what is stopping you from figuring out that problem on your own? What's stopping you from getting to 100 grand a month on your own? That's a doubt question, okay? That's eliciting them telling you why they can't do it themselves, quite verbatim. There's other ways to do it. There's like chunking down. There's, digging into stuff they tried in the past and how long it's been going on and how they're stuck. A lot of sales training focuses on getting people away from DIY, and it's important. Not a lot of it focuses on people not even believing it's possible, which is really, really big. So we want to focus on both, and we also, more importantly, we just want to understand where somebody is on the spectrum so we can nudge them the right way. Hope that makes sense. So far, I want you to think of, we covered what people buy, we've covered why they buy it, but to influence somebody fully, that's not going to be enough, okay? So we need to know how they make the decision, right? And the way I explain how they make the decision is through what's called the belief ladder, all right? So we're going to talk about the belief ladder really quick. I want to discuss what really drives all human behavior. And the way we're going to cover that is through this framework, and it's called DILT neurological levels. Okay, so bear with me here. I know this is going to get kind of conceptual and high level here for a second, but this is like really cool. I'm passionate about this stuff. So the belief ladder is going to be after this. So what is DILT's neurological levels? Okay, so it's a framework for understanding and explaining all human behavior and what influences that. And the idea of this is that the things that are higher on this level influence your behavior more so than the things below. So for instance, your purpose influences you more than your environment, okay? Great example. Everybody in the entrepreneurial space right now is like, oh, it's all about environment. And it really is. Environment is huge, but consider Mother Teresa or Gandhi, okay? These people, they were in environments surrounded by poor people who needed their help, that they needed to lead, and their purpose allowed them to ascend to a higher level and influence their behavior more than their environment. If Mother Teresa let her environment influence her more than her purpose, she wouldn't have been able to lead as well, okay? So I'm not saying that environment doesn't influence you, it does. This is just a framework for you to understand what influences people the most, more so than others. So purpose, why God put us on this planet, that reason, what we believe, influences us more than anything. Identity is a big one, right? Who we believe we are influences us almost more than anything else except for purpose. And our purpose actually shapes our identity, okay? So identity is a really, really big one. We'll talk about this a lot throughout the program. But this is why people, if you've ever taken a program that's like a lot of the high-ticket 3-month programs out there right now, teach you how to create an identity document, all right? And the reason they do this is because identity is one of the highest drivers of human behavior. So if they can get you to reshape your identity, it's going to, it's automatically going to shape your values, your beliefs, your capabilities, your skills, everything else. Okay? Also, what's really important is people's values and their beliefs. That influences their capabilities, their behavior, the environment. So it's like, okay, great, but why? Like, come on, Cole. Like, why is this? This is super high level. Like, why is this important? All right. So our entire selling system is designed around eliciting everything that's within this red circle. Okay. It's designed around eliciting their purpose, their identity, their values, and their beliefs. All right. And just to give you kind of like an example, what we'll do with our objections is we elicit all this stuff, and we elicit it in a way to where they're telling us what their highest purpose is, what their aspired identity is. Okay. And if they start to act squirrely at the end, and by squirrely, I mean like if they start to act from a place of fear opposed to faith when you're handling objections at the end, we can realign them and realign them with who they told us they wanted to be at the beginning of the call. Right? So we'll get into this when we do objection handling, but when you really elicit this stuff well, it helps you hold people accountable at the end of the call. Right? And like you might have heard this before, but a really great objection handle is like the question and the issue is not X. The real question is, who do you want to be? Do you want to be the type of person who makes decisions based out of a place of fear? And all of your decision making in your entire life for the next year, 2, 3 years is guided out of fear? Or do you want to be the entrepreneur and the person who can make decisions out of a place of faith, who can make decisions that are scary, but despite that, they know it's not only best for them and their family, but also the market that you're serving and the people that really need you. The real question is, who do you want to be? Okay? And that was just kind of like a random example I just riffed that off the cuff. You want to be using what they told you, who they told you they want to be, and what they told you their purpose was to be able to frame that. And we have a whole week dedicated to this stuff, but I just want you to understand it and start thinking about it now. Okay? Now, our sales process in the belief ladder is all focused on this part of neurological levels. So that's why I circled here. So let's get into this. What is the belief ladder, and how and why is it important? Okay. The belief ladder is basically the set of beliefs your prospect must hold to be true to move forward. Okay. So once you get this and you understand not just the beliefs, but how to install them, what we can do is we can naturally lead our prospect to the emotional and logical conclusion that our offer is the best next step for them. And we can do it with a way in which we understand the full context of the situation. We're able to navigate the conversation really well with really good behavioral flexibility, opposed to like trying to memorize a script or a bunch of lines and questions and rebuttals and all this stuff. Okay. More importantly, what it allows us to do is identify and eliminate the limiting beliefs before we move into our offer. Okay. So what that's going to do is your objections always come from limiting beliefs. So if we understand where somebody's at in the belief ladder and what beliefs that they don't have that we need to install before we get to the pitch, we can eliminate the objections before the close. Okay. And it'll make more sense down the road. And also, when you can do this and you have really good behavioral flexibility, you're going to be able to understand the context of where you're at really, really well. And, hour-long calls or 90-minute calls or all of this stuff will become like 30 to 40-minute calls, which is amazing. Okay. So if you looked at my marketing and obviously you're this far in the video, you're probably like, okay, well, what are the beliefs, right? And I haven't really shown these to anybody yet, so I want to get into this now for you. And basically, the 7 decision-making beliefs are pain, doubt, cost, desire, trust, support, and money. Okay? Pain, doubt, cost, desire are the emotional beliefs. Trust, I call it trust triad because there's actually 3 trust beliefs. And then there's the support belief and the money belief. Those are the logistical beliefs. So we have emotional, trust, and logistical. 3 categories, 7 beliefs total. Okay? So we don't go through these in any certain order. We kind of do. What's more important is at all times in the conversation, we know if we've covered these or not, or if we know we need to focus and spend more time on these to really anchor these bad boys in. So here's the 7 beliefs, and I'm going to go into detail on each one. So we're going to start with the emotional beliefs after I get a drink of water here. Okay, so emotional beliefs. So the first one is the pain belief. Okay, pain belief is super simple. It's that the prospect must believe that they have a problem that's keeping them from achieving a desired result, a desired logical and emotional destination. All right, so business is about solving problems because money follows value, value comes from solving problems. So business is about solving problems. If we know that to be true, then sales is just the demonstration you can solve a problem for somebody else. Therefore, no problem, no sale. Okay? This is why I hate starting sales conversations with the question of what motivated you to get on the call. It's okay. We could still use that question. However, the real question I like to ask is, so ultimately, like, what is the biggest challenge that you're struggling with in business right now? Ultimately, what is not working currently? Okay? Because what I want to do is elicit the problem because the conversation is nothing but about the problem, the pain. So we always start with that first. That dictates what I do with the entire conversation. So we always start with the pain. Now, the other important one is the doubt. Because we all have pains, but there's some pains we think that we can figure out ourselves. Or there's some problems that, unfortunately, maybe some of us believe that no matter what we do, it's always going to be there. Right? So the doubt belief is that the prospect must believe that they cannot fix this problem on their own, or attempting to do so would waste unnecessary resources with time and money, given what else is available to them, aka your offer. So the doubt belief is basically the buying pocket, right? It's that they believe the transformation is possible, but only with your help. All right. So to create the doubt belief, we use basically questions to position them in the buying pocket, depending on where they are. And this also, doing this will eliminate DIY/ego objections. Okay. Now, the third one is the cost belief. So the cost belief is that the prospect must believe that doing nothing is far more painful than the investment of the time and money to fix the problem working with you. Okay? It's gaining leverage on your prospects to where the almost probable and almost certain future 6, 12, 3 years, 5 years down the road is so much more painful that they're better off doing something now. It's less costly doing something now. Right? This explains why now, why not stay where you are, what's going to happen if you don't change. Right? This will eliminate time-based objections to where people are, they need to think about it. They want to maybe circle back in a month. It's just not a priority right now. It really builds the urgency to where once you really get this down, all you need to focus on is getting them certain about the offer, right? And making sure that your product is the right one for them. But the salesperson who can really nail this cost belief is usually going to make the sale because he's going to be able to position the offer correctly and then make the sale on the spot, warm call close. So this one is critical. Okay, so the next one is the desire belief. All right, and the desire belief is that they must believe that solving the problem/challenge is going to yield a better future logically and emotionally than the one that they have now. All right. If your prospect doesn't have a strong association to where they're going, they're going to have too much fear to move forward. If you've been in sales, you've probably had a prospect to where they might have came on the call. They may be like, I have a problem. I don't know how to fix it on my own. And, I need to fix this now. But they were so consumed by their fear and not associated enough towards their pleasure and their desires that they just couldn't get over their fear and they just couldn't take any action. So we need to get them associated to where they're moving towards as well as where they're moving away. Because that's going to give the prospect clarity, and clarity lends to certainty, and certainty lends to action. So we need to make sure we anchor that in on the call. Now, the trust triad, all right, what is this? So there's three trust beliefs within the trust triad. One is the prospect must believe in their own capabilities, right? So again, this is like the buying pocket, right? They have to believe that the result is achievable, right? But only with your help. Okay, but there's a lot of people where you might have to give them some proof and some stories that this is actually a doable thing, right? Some people just don't believe in their ability to lose weight. They don't believe in, their ability to start a business, and a lot of that shaped through things that happen in their life. We need to use stories and case studies if necessary to make sure it's believable. Hopefully, your marketing does this, but you can do it on your calls as well. They also must believe that your offer is the fastest route to achieving their desired result while consuming the least amount of resources, which resources is time and money. Okay, so again, this is kind of the other side of the buying pocket. This is getting them certain about the process. We do this with our pitch. And they also must believe that you and your company will follow through on the promise, right? Because you can nail everything, but if they don't believe you, then what that's going to do is it's going to create smoke screens, which are basically trust-based objections, but they're really, they'll show up as like financial-based objections, or they'll show up as spouse-based objections, but really they're trust, okay? So we do this one through case studies, through stories, through proof, through third-party data, a lot of things that hopefully your marketing does, but if not, we can pre-frame on the call. This one's really tricky. Like, I just reviewed a call in which the guy threw out a financial objection, and then the salesperson kind of started to handle that. And then he went to spouse, and then he went back to like, oh, I just don't know how this is going to work. And then he went back to spouse, and it was because basically he didn't trust the salesperson, right? And that was because of some ways that the salesperson handled the call earlier in the process. So we want to make sure that we anchor all of these in. We'll cover that in weeks 3 and 4. I just want you to understand this now. So last two beliefs, these are logistical beliefs. There's a support belief and the money belief, okay? The support belief is that the people that are close to them, AKA their family, their spouse, their business partner, the business partners, will support them in making this decision, right? Because what do they don't want? They don't want to make the decision and then their business partner, family, or spouse be upset with them. That is going to equal pain. So we want to anchor and support, and we want to knock off this belief and check it off the list before we move into our pitch. Otherwise, it's a crapshoot. We might get this, we might not, or we might get this as a smoke screen, and we don't know if it's a smoke screen or not because we never knocked it off. So that's a support belief. The money belief is that the prospect is able and willing to invest the necessary resources in your offer to solve the problem. Okay, so this obviously prevents financial objections. Now, there's kind of two parts to this. There's able and there's willing. Able is basically like, do they physically and conditionally have the money, right? Like if you've had somebody on the phone that has $900 in the bank account and a 530 credit score, they are not able, nor are they willing, because they can't, but they're not able. But I've seen people who, there's one guy I was coaching. He had a 5K offer. It was dating coaching for men. And the prospect was an attorney, made like $300,000 a year, right? He was able, but then when the salesperson dropped the price, he was not willing to invest $5K to fix his relationships. So there's ways we want to kind of vet the prospect and make sure they're willing to invest the necessary resources to solve the problem. And if they're not, make it resistance here, we want to reframe and challenge them to anchor this in, okay? And it works a lot. I mean, you could do this at the end of the call, but I'll just tell you, it works a lot better at the beginning of the call when you don't have the money on the floor, okay? So the real question is then, right, how do we create these beliefs in our prospects? Well, this is what the entire reverse selling system is designed to do. And really what it is we're going to use what's called Socratic dialogue, which is basically a set of questions to lead the prospect along the belief ladder to a place in which they are actually asking you to explain to them what you offer, okay? So Socratic dialogue, I just recently learned this actually from Jeremy Miner. Stuff is amazing. And it's basically sets of questions. Now, I like some of Jeremy's questions. I kind of just have my own. I'm going to teach you what's worked in my own experience because that's the only thing I can teach. But we're going to use these to lead the prospect along the belief ladder to a place where preferably you can check off all 7 beliefs before you transition into the close, okay? This will be the focus of weeks 3 and 4. But just at a high level, I want you to think of the beliefs as the outcomes you're looking for in your discovery process, and your questions as the tools you'll use to achieve those outcomes. Okay? So the beliefs are the outcomes that we want to achieve during our discovery process. That's when we're asking the questions. And the questions are the tools we're going to use to achieve those outcomes. It's like the beliefs are the target that you're shooting for, and the sets of questions you have for each belief are arrows in your quiver that you're going to shoot off and achieve the target. Okay? Because there's going to be I'm going to give you 10 questions for each of these, but you might only need to use 1 question. Or on a certain belief that's a really kind of sticky one, you might need to use 5 and really dig in. Okay? So we're going to cover what are we looking for to achieve each outcome, and then the tools we have, the questions that we use to achieve that outcome. Okay? We're also going to learn how to take notes in a way that's going to make this super simple and easy. If it wasn't for my note-taking system, I don't really know how you would do this, but the way I take notes is just, it's so plain and easy. It eliminates the use for a script. All you got to do is just make sure you're pretty familiar with the questions, and then you just follow the process. And once we take care of this, and we can ascend somebody along the belief ladder to where they're a place where they're in the buying pocket, they're very associated with what they're escaping and what they're moving towards, both logically and emotionally, all of this will create internal pressure. Okay? Now, most sales training focuses on external pressure. So this is like deadlines, fast action discounts, and sales pressure rebuttals and all this stuff. That's like the old school style of selling. What's really working right now is creating internal pressure, which is basically when somebody's aligned with all this stuff, the 7 beliefs, the buying pocket, they're going to move forward promptly with 0 pressure because it's all about their own reasons and not yours. So we want to, we can still use some external pressure, don't get me wrong. Like a fast action discount with some markets, it'll still work. But what really is going to work is when they're associated internally, and then they know this is what they want to do, and they're doing it for their own reasons. And then you don't have to use any sales pressure, which is where it's at. So that wraps it up for this video. What I want to talk about that we're going to cover next is now that we know all these 7 beliefs, and this is kind of some homework for you guys, but now that we know all 7 beliefs, I want you to start to think about which ones that you're not getting on your calls, okay? And if you're like, I don't know, I'm not getting these, ask yourself, out of the last 30 calls I've taken, what objections am I not getting? Or what objections have I been getting, okay? Based on the objections you've been getting, you should be able to, knowing these beliefs, reverse engineer which ones you're missing, okay? For instance, if you're getting financial objections, it's the money objection. If you're getting a lot of uncertainty, I need to think about it, I don't know, and people are dancing around and you can't really get clear on what the actual objection is, it's probably trust. Okay, maybe it's spouse, right? Reverse engineer this out, and then we can start to role play through some of this stuff next week. Now, I also want you to get through the rest of week 1. I will admit, this stuff is not as sexy. I'm trying to make this stuff as sexy as possible for you guys, but it's really important. This is the non-sexy stuff that I use to absolutely crush it. But it's not going to be as cool as the objection handling I'm going to teach you is badass. You're going to love it. But some of this stuff is a little bit more foundational, but it's so important. We're also this week going to talk about the inner game of sales, which is basically the sales mindset and frames that I take onto the call, how I do my pre-call ritual, a lot of different things that will really, really help you perform at a high level, and also additional keys to high performance. And this is more self-regulation so that you can self-monitor your performance and not fall in the ruts. Because the biggest risk you have as a salesperson and as an entrepreneur who's doing your own sales is not it's not the high end of your performance. The biggest risk is you falling in the ruts. So we want to eliminate our downside more so than we want to maximize our upside. We'll do both in this program, but if you can eliminate your downside, that alone will make you a ton more money. This will teach you how to do that. Then once we get through that, weeks 2 through 6 will be very practical implementation. Week 2 will be covering what's called the pitch codex, and then really structuring your sales pitch. That alone will be massive for you guys. Then weeks 3 and 4 is going to be the entire Socratic dialogue and the reverse selling system. Weeks 5, 6, and so on and so forth will be prospecting, pipeline, follow-up, systems, all that cool stuff that'll really help you just kind of like probably plug some holes in your sales process and start to make some really easy sales. And then of course, down the road, we'll be adding on, wait 1 second. Down the road, we'll be adding on recruiting, training, managing, and hiring a sales team. But if you need help with that now, just reach out to me on Voxer, and I can take care of you with that. So that's it for this video. We'll see you guys in the next training.